Hey everybody, Bearded Rogue here, back in my usual hideout. So this video is going to cover Gen Con Day 4, the trip home from Gen Con, and all of that good stuff. I wasn't able to get it recorded the day of. Lots of stuff to do in the booth teardown, team dinners, packing, getting up at 4 a.m. to catch a 6 a.m. flight, landing just in time for the eclipse to hit, you know, all that good stuff. So day 4 was much slower in the booth than previous days. I don't know if everybody had already left or everybody was in the hall doing last minute shopping rather than being in the event hall playing games, but the event hall was much quieter. That being said, we had 2 games of Ex Libris running basically from hall open until hall close. We had 2 games of Clank and Space running from hall open to hall close. We had Sentient and Scott Pilgrim running from hall open to hall close. The Clank tournament was not as well attended on Sunday, so there was just a lot less of that going on, which meant we could have more games out for demoing, which was awesome. All of that was pretty good. Teardown was much easier than setup. That's kind of always the case. The big limiter in Teardown, for those who've never assisted in a booth, is basically waiting for the Gen Con people to drop off the pallets and such for you to actually load up your materials. All that stuff is stored in the back, and they kind of bring it out from the outside of the hall in, so the booths in the middle typically get it later. So while you can, you know, stack a whole bunch of boxes to get them ready for a pallet or tear down all your furniture, you can't actually finish until you can load everything on pallets. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Several publishers have all sorts of fancy cases and other sorts of storage solutions that are more expensive but that make it easier to just get everything together. Some of them are on rollers and stuff like that for the entirety of the convention, like in giant toolboxes or things like you would use for a touring band kind of thing. So that kind of stuff exists. But it's not the norm. Most booths don't have any setup like that and use traditional fork lift loaded and moved pallets. But we got all that done, went to the team dinner. The team dinner was excellent. I'm not going to cover much of the goings on at the team dinner or any of the packing or anything. Just suffice it to say that Renegade Games took really good care of us. It was extremely hard work. They were busy nearly non-stop. Setup was an absolute beast. And it was not an easy volunteering gig at all. That being said, we were more than fairly recompensed for the amount of work that we did. Renegade took good care of us the whole convention. I felt that I was constantly listened to and supported, and I was never out there just kind of hanging out on my own. They were fantastic to work with, and if you get a chance to work with them in the future, I highly recommend it. Very, very professional crew who know exactly what they're doing, and are getting better and better at everything as they go on. Like, even from day 1 of the convention to day 4 of the convention, we had already figured out better processes for how to do things on the fly, which is something that is the mark of a really flexible and strong organization. To be able to make changes and adapt mid-con like that is a big deal. But yeah, Renegade is awesome. The Uber to the airport was fantastic. The gentleman who picked me up, the entire inside of his car was decorated with all sorts of very awesome, like, stained glass window type coverings, and he had lights, multicolored lights running around the roof of his vehicle. It was one of the classiest, like most decorated and pretty Uber rides I've ever had. He was pumping out some killer jams as well, and a really awesome sound system. So even though I had to get up at 4 a.m. to finish packing everything, pile into an Uber, and ride to the airport, his support and his amazing ride made it a much better trip than it had any right to be. I didn't have any problems with the airlines. I did get there a little bit before they were doing baggage checks, so I had to kind of wait in line there at the check-in counter, but I made my flight. Indy is a very weird airport. They didn't want anybody to use bins. When I first got in line, they were demanding that everybody take out every board game out of their luggage and all of their cards out of their luggage. And as the line began to stack up quickly, TSA realized that that was a really dumb idea. Like, the line quadrupled in size while I was waiting in it. And then finally, they just decided, you know what, we're not going to make you all take it out, run it through the x-ray machine, and, you know, we'll go from there. I don't even know. I don't think they're truly prepared for the sheer amount of people that are coming through, which is funny because it's this way every year. You'd think that they would know that Gen Con exists and either beef up staff or already have some sort of protocol in place, but this was very much, we're going to search everything. Oh crap, the line's wrapping around the building. No, we're not. Which was a little bit disheartening. The good news is none of my luggage was dumped or searched through. I didn't have any kind of delays once they made up their mind that they weren't going to make everybody take everything out of their bags. Would have been an absolute nightmare since I had opened all of my boxes and nested them and everything to fit them in my luggage. It would have been a nightmare pulling it all out and trying to get it back in, but luckily I avoided that fiasco. Flew through Denver. Denver is a fantastic airport. I had never flown through Denver before. I'm really looking forward to using them as a hub in the future. Really well laid out, really easy to navigate, really good food and restaurants and shops and stuff right there where you need it. I wish I'd actually had more hangover time in Denver. I would have eaten there because they had a really, really great setup. So I can see myself trying to deliberately go through Denver in the future. Landed in Portland on time, actually a little bit early, picked up my checked bags without incident, got in the car, drove a little bit, got some breakfast, watched the eclipse. I landed about 20 minutes before the eclipse started, so we were able to get to a safe parking lot and watch the eclipse while I ate my first meal since the team dinner the night before. It was a very tiny little teriyaki place, and it was like the greatest thing I'd ever eaten at that point because I was so hungry. But the flight went without incident. It was really great flying back into Portland. Portland definitely feels like home now. As soon as I saw Mount Hood out the windows, I had to snap a photo because that really meant home to me. So I guess, you know, I really am from Portland now in my own mind. That one image was enough for me to know that I was home again. Got home, got everything unpacked, spent most of the day trying to catch up on chores and wrestling from the weekend. Both NXT and SummerSlam were this weekend. So I've finished the NXT TakeOver event as of this point. I have not finished SummerSlam. TakeOver was mandatory viewing in my opinion. SummerSlam so far has been meh. We'll see how I feel about it after I've finished it, but NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3 may have been the best NXT TakeOver ever, so I really, really enjoyed it. Fantastic set of matches and stuff. It was really great to see Raphael again after not seeing him for a week. It was really great to see my wife again after not seeing her for a week. Um, and I just spent most of the day on the couch snuggling with my little man and watching wrestling or watching whatever he want to watch, alternating between the two, unpacking, doing chores, stuff like that. Um, I posted a haul picture to my Twitter. Expect a haul video probably tomorrow. I'll go through everything I purchased at Gen Con and cover that. But that'll probably be the final Gen Con video. It's convenient for Vlogust that Gen Con fills up so much of my content. However, I have a feeling that next year, as I said in my previous video, I'm probably not going to be attending Gen Con again, just because it's not my kind of convention. And so I think next Vlogust will be a little bit harder to fill those dates. Maybe I'll do some Gen Can't coverage, who knows. But yeah, that's that's what's up. I made it home safely. All my stuff made it here just fine. No incidents whatsoever, not even delays on my flights. Got to see the eclipse. Mostly caught up on wrestling, and next after that will be the Defenders, which also dropped Friday, because this was apparently the busiest weekend ever, with Netflix dropping the Defenders, WWE stuff all weekend, and then the Eclipse Monday. You know, who knew that Gen Con week was going to be so packed full of stuff. But yeah, I made it home. Everything's great. I can't wait to show you guys my haul. I'm very, very happy with what I was able to acquire during this convention. It's not the largest haul I've ever had from a convention by any means, but it is solid quality from start to finish. I'm very happy with everything that I got. Some of the stuff was stuff that I hadn't even hoped to get, but managed to snag anyway, just by the opportunity presented itself, and so I went ahead and did it. My biggest miss of the convention, I can go ahead and reveal that here, is that I wasn't able to get either of the Catacombs expansions. I really love Catacombs. I was really hoping to pick them up, but by the time I was able to get into the hall with on my lunch hour after working on the rush day, they were completely unavailable, so I wasn't able to pick them up. But that's the only thing that was on my list that I missed. So that's not too bad for a Gen Con. Last year I know that there were several games that I wasn't able to get. And this year I was a bit more realistic in my goals. I didn't put any of the Asmodee stuff at all. Like, I wasn't going to try to get TI4 or pick up the Splendor expansion or any of that stuff. I knew I wasn't going to have time to wait in line, and so I just didn't even pretend that that was going to be an option. Also, several of the things that I wanted were already Origins releases, and Gen Con was just kind of their, like, big debut to the public at large, so I'd already had an opportunity to snag several of the titles that I wanted at Origins that were going to be at Gen Con, so it wasn't as imperative that I race in on the first morning, not that I really had the opportunity to. Running demos is fun. I really like running demos, especially if I enjoy the game. The past two conventions, I demoed Sherlock Holmes for IDW at Origins the whole time, and then I got to demo Ex Libris at Gen Con. I demoed several other games like Clank in Space, Atlas, Sentient, Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Card Game, Fox in the Forest, and several other Renegade titles. But Ex Libris was my primary function for the weekend. I was the Ex Libris guy, getting everybody set up and running, and then coming back to find out who had built the best magical library. It was a fantastic thing. I really like demoing, and I especially like demoing when I'm in love with the game. I was fortunate enough to be able to run demos for my Game of the Con at both conventions, and that makes a huge difference for me. So, you know, Steven Sauer and Sherlock Holmes and Adam McIver and Ex Libris released some there's some fantastic games that came out, and it was my pleasure to be able to actually share those at their big debut convention. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I had a good time at Gen Con. I didn't get to do everything I wanted to. That's Gen Con. Nobody ever gets to do everything they wanted to do at Gen Con. I did get to play several prototypes from other people. I did get some feedback on some of my prototypes. One of them walked away with a publisher, which is a fantastic feeling. Having publisher interest in my designs. I also played one of my prototypes with a publisher, and it went over very, very well. They took information and everything, and we're going to run it by the home office after, of course, they'd spent the whole weekend looking at prototypes. They were going to try to narrow their list down and everything. But just fantastic. The publishers I met with, all professional, all amazing, all fantastic. All of my games had a very good reception. I really feel like I'm right on the edge of finally getting a contract signed, and really looking forward to having my stuff out there. My 24 card game that I designed like the night before Gen Con and on the plane ride over is officially an 18 card game now. So I'm excited to get some more playtests in on that. I got some very, very productive playtests in with my old Cincinnati crew, who were all there at Gen Con, and several of my design friends from all over, people from New York, Alabama, all over the place. It was great to be able to get some feedback on something so early in its design, and help get rid of all the kinks and the bugs. It is probably going to need to have a new theme attached to it. I don't have a problem with that. Overall, I think that will probably be just fine, to add a new theme to it, but it's working really well. I'm kind of excited. I've never tried to design anything that small before, and to have it come together as quickly as it did was just a bit of a shock, actually. But yeah, that's about it. Expect a haul video tomorrow, and then we'll move on to talking about things that aren't Gen Con. Anyway, Bearded Rogue out.